Hello, and welcome to our mini PD on social studies and integrating technology tools into the social studies classroom and lessons. This is our last mini PD series, and I am so thankful for those of you who have tagged along for this whole thing. This is a recorded session due to a district meeting that ended up being scheduled the same day as the day I had scheduled this. This is a recording of the video. You will need to complete the Google form in order to get credit. And so the video is not going to be quite as long as a recorded or in-person session would be, but we're still going to make the best of it. And if you have any questions or feedback or comments, you can always add those to your form whenever you submit it, and I will be happy to reach back out to you with a response. So today we are going to focus on social studies. If you teach social studies either in the elementary classroom or in secondary setting that there is a lot to social studies. It covers a really, really wide variety of topics. I have taught social studies very briefly and only in one grade level. But I think about in the elementary grade levels, we talk about maps and, major wars and the movement of people. And then we do talk about geography. And then whenever we get into like the middle school and high school, we branch off into economics and world history versus US history and government, and even things like are on this, little example right here, sociology and politics and philosophy, and all of those things are all encompassed. Fun fact, I have heard from people and had some really good friends in college that were in secondary education social studies, and they were actually told, and I've heard from several other professionals, that the social studies praxis is one of the hardest to pass. So if you are a secondary teacher watching this, congratulations on that, because I know that it has a ton of content to cover. So, and you're sitting here thinking, yeah, I know that already, Katie. So um, to get started, I do have our Padlet of resources. I have updated the social studies column. I'm just going to jump over to that really quick. And I've included a link to the slide deck. I've included the items that we're going to look at today. I'm missing one I need to put on there. And then I have also looked up just a couple of other activities because there really are. We're focusing on a very small amount of tools today, but the possibilities are endless. And so it's kind of maybe the opposite of like reading or math, where there's a ton of tools to use for specific lessons. Social studies is one of those things that you can really take a couple of core tools and use them over and over again. So that's going to kind of be our shift in perspective today with that. So there's a link to the Padlet. There's a QR code you can scan that goes to that link. That's going to be in the email when I send it out. So also, with our mini PD, the reason and the place that all of this stems from is the digital literacy and computer science standards. These were adopted in 2018 or 2019. I may have that wrong. They're currently being revamped right now at the State Department. So we're going to have a new shakeup with that in a couple of years when that gets completed. But especially in the elementary classroom, there is not usually a dedicated person in your school to teach these. They are very, very easy to incorporate into other curriculum, though. So I have pulled out one for each grade level, first through sixth grade, that could easily be integrated into the social studies classroom. First grade with Global Collaborator, identifying keywords in a search. Well, if we're talking about a certain, item and part of history, if we are talking about, Christopher Columbus coming over on the Mayflower and the first Thanksgiving, we can discuss important words with first graders that if we're wanting to find out information about those and pick out keywords and be able to search for those. Even if it is teacher led, I wonder what I could type in to find out more information about this and coming up with that. Those are digital literacy skills. Second grade, collecting, creating, and organizing data into digital charts and graphs. That is very common in social studies. There's lots of things to look at and decipher, and even just reviewing those in whole group. Third grade, identify and discuss ways that access to technology helps people. So when we start talking about like the Industrial Revolution, I know it's hard for kids, especially third graders, to think about the modern manufacturing, the Henry Ford with the assembly line, car creation, things like that, how that changed people's lives. That is exactly what that standard is talking about. It, is a little bit of a stretch maybe, and the first place our brain goes to is current technologies, but all of those things were current technologies at that time. Fourth grade, formulating a list of subproblems to consider while addressing a larger problem. My mind kind of goes to like war times during this. Fourth grade is also Alabama history. There's the civil rights movement is really heavy in fourth grade. Thinking about those things, if you look at the civil rights movement, for example, the large problem right there is the inequality between races. So we can take that big idea and we can think of lots of little sub issues that are part of that as well. How are we going to educate these children? How we have two separate schools? What is the problem here? And how does that contribute to the big problem? So that is a skill that we do in history a lot. Wartime, the big overarching thing. Certain countries want control, or these countries disagree on this, or things like that. And then all the little things that lead up to that. So that is absolutely addressing that computational thinker standard. Fifth grade, collaborate locally and globally using online digital tools. We're going to talk about some of the mapping tools today and how this would be a great standard to address with those students. And then sixth grade, it's very similar to that third grade standard, identify emergent technologies and computing. When we do get in history where we start getting into that technology era in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, this would be something that could be discussed then. Lots of fun things that you could do to compare then and nows, especially with sixth graders are not going to know what a dinosaur computer looked like, or a floppy disk, or things like that. So those would be really fun lessons to address with there. Moving on into seventh and eighth grade, there are lots of overarching standards that can be used when you're discussing like current events and things like that. Validity of data, when we look at, looking at demographics of people and things like that. The problem solving processes, how automation increases efficiency, going back to that like industrial revolution area. And then the impact of digital globalization, again, kind of revisiting that sixth grade standard where we talk about how technology kind of came on the scene. So it is really easy to incorporate that standard, and you're doing the same skill, just applying it to a different content area. Okay, so now switching gears, let's talk about some of our tools for social studies. So I have listed six kind of overarching things that I wanted to discuss today. Google Earth being one of those. That is something that, used to, I had students whenever I was teaching sixth grade, hey, can I just look at my house? Google Earth has actually revamped a ton and has a lot of interactive features, and you can create projects now. So we'll look at that. My Maps is a great tool to kind of build like tours type things. You can have students look up locations and drop pins on maps and kind of create either historical pathways or create their own. Google Arts and Culture is the former Google Expeditions, if you were familiar with that. It has lots of preloaded content, pictures, tours, art exhibits, lots of cultural things are going to be located there. Just doing some quick research for this presentation, I found a website called iCivics. I've never heard of it before. I don't know if you have. It is free. It has tons of stuff. We'll take a peek at that today. Um, Presentation tools, we can't overlook the impact that that's going to have on any topic, that using those digital tools to present things just make life a little bit easier, and give some students some of those real world skills that they're going to need. And then digital annotations, I just a little activity just to take from the old boring and change it up a little bit, just to give kids a little bit of differentiation and some ways that you could do things with some text that you may be using in social studies, because social studies is going to be a lot of research and reading and things like that too. So also I have a link in here, probably not the best place for me to have it right now, but Common Sense Media has a lot of good ideas for apps and websites that could be used for social studies. These are very specific apps and websites that could be downloaded. If it is, excuse me, if it is on this list, it is going to be something that we can approve and get on here. Be careful if they're looking at free versus paid. But they just this kind of gives you some more ideas. Like this first one is current events. Then we kind of have a geography and exploration list, history and historical figures. So I didn't really want to like get super deep in the weeds on all that. I just wanted to provide you with a list. So if you were looking for your specific content area inside social studies, here's a list of some things that you might could try out for that. Okay. All right, so Google Earth, My Maps, and Arts and Culture. And I just realized this is being recorded. I did not change the definitions of those. So you know what? We are going to just take that off real quick. Real time, real life edits that we have right here. Okay, maybe that looks a little bit better. Okay, so I'm actually going to go into a different browser window and kind of walk through these things a little bit so that you can see what they do and what they look like, and you can try them on your own with me. So I do have the link on the Padlet, which I probably could go use. I'm just typing in Google Earth right here. So again, this, used to be like kids would just get on here and just look at stuff. This home screen was new to me whenever I started using this a couple of weeks ago, doing some research for this and doing some other things for Google Boot Camp, that now you can actually make projects in Google Earth. So I'm just going to make a new project. You can also make something in My Maps and then pull it over to Google Earth, if that's something that you want to do. But I'm just going to do a new project. And I'm going to title it Social Studies PD Test. And I am just going to type in my address here at the Board of Education. Okay, so 1705 Laydown Road, this is the Board of Education. I am going to save this to my project. And so when I save this, I can actually update it to say, I'm just going to put CCBOE for right now. And it's not letting me type that. Okay, well, okay, there we go. And to get that one into clear. All right, so it's changing my thing. I can change my icon size. I can change what color it's gonna be. Just a couple of like little, fun things that kids would like to do. So looking at this, one of the things and couple of tools that we can use here is that if you are looking like at a geographical region, this piece right here is going to be super cool. So this is activate historical imagery. So we can actually go back, and in certain places it's a different span of years. Like I did personally did my house too. And my house doesn't go back to 1985, but because this is kind of in a more, like populated area, I can kind of go back and see. Can go back to what 1985, the image is not going to be great. I can go to 97. Again, this is more like black and white. So, that this conversation, this is before these students were even born. And we can just look and see how these areas have changed over time. You can see right here, too, if I zoom out a little bit, most of you know that Jefferson State Community College is right down here now. So in 2006, that didn't exist, which is accurate because that was when I was in high school and that was definitely not there. We can jump to 2011 and definitely see a major change and expansion. So, we can talk about things that happened between those periods of time. 2012, jump over to 2020, and jump even over to 2024, where now we're starting to see the land clearing and development for the new courthouse. So this is something that's really cool for kids to be able to see how things have changed over time. We can also do a time lapse. It's a little blurry going through those earlier years. So this is going to definitely require some like manipulating to, maybe if I gone at a little slower speed, it would be able to pick up like the actual imagery and things like that. So historical timeline, super cool feature. So then when we go back to our project, if we wanted to kind of like create like a tour essentially, we can add a new place and then we can actually add a path. So I am just going to add a place mark. I'm actually going to go back and search. I'm going to put, well, and it did this to me before. I'm going to put Thorsby High School on here. So I'm going to save Thorsby High School on my project. So what I can now do, let's see, if it pull some other high schools. We can do Maplesville High School, save it to our project. Let's see if Jemison High School pulls up. No, that's okay. thought I had one more. Yeah, we can do Isabella. That's fine. We will do these. So I'm going to just save that to my project. So now what I can actually do is that I can make a path between all of these things too. So, if I zoom all the way out or way more out on my map where I can see my placeholders and things that I have put on here, I can click points on my map and can actually draw a pathway connecting those. So, this would be great. I know this is not a super good example to do this with, but this would be really cool to show movements between groups of people over time. Um, to be able to see the shift and things like that. We could also talk about too when you could discuss distance and bring some math into here about how if I could just do a straight shot to Thorsby, it may not take as many miles as it would driving because I have to drive on the road and things like that. So Google Earth does have some really cool things that you can do, and you can also pull in like geographical elements and talk about terrain and elevation and water, bodies of water, and all those other fancy landmark words that I am not super well versed in. So the next thing I want to talk about is Google My Maps. Now, the biggest difference between Google My Maps is going to be that most of the time, oh, I forgot something super important on Google Earth. Let me go back to Google Earth really quickly. This is going to be what your kids ask you to do all of the time, but that is going to be for you to also go into the street view. So if you pull your little man down here on the bottom and you click on it, it's going to show all of the places that you can drop your man. You can just drag and drop that person actually onto the map, and it will take us to that place. So there is our lovely office. We can actually, move forward a little bit if we wanted, or I can turn all the way around and go down the road. And you can see it's also going to kind of change over time too. And it's just going to be depending on the last time that was updated. It kind of in the background right here gives you a 2017. This was 2023. So it just depends on whenever they've like updated the mapping system. So Street View is also going to be something, and especially for a lot of our students in Chilton County, doing this in bigger cities is a great way to let them see like things in Washington, D.C. and stuff like that too. So that would be super cool. Okay, jump back over to my maps. I typically prefer to look at my maps in not the move my toolbar right away, not the like um terrain mode, but more like in the traffic mode. So basically with my maps, it's going to be, and this is really not the right page. Let me do Google Maps. Here we go. So we're going to make a new map. And this is again going to be more in that not 3D looking terrain. So we kind of do the same thing about adding locations. So 1705 Laydam Road. I can add this to map. Now here I have a little bit more flexibility with like our customability that I want to do. So I can actually put like different icons here. So I could do I don't really see one for work. We'll do not sleep. You can actually choose different icons. So like this could, kids could be able to be a little bit more creative with things like that. So, they would probably rather choose different icons for different things. So I was looking for, we'll choose our little, I know that's a municipal building, but we'll choose it. So that's going to be my icon for that. So they would like doing that. You can actually upload your own pictures or search for one in Google. We can change the heading. We can put a description. So I would think this one probably is going to be for a little bit more of an advanced grade level, because you could really put a lot more detail and time into what you're putting here. You can also do different layers and stack them on top of each other. So you could do, for example, like I was thinking about Native Americans and the, Indian movements whenever they were being forced out west. You could like pick certain tribes and do different layers for different tribes and be able to look at all of them at the same time and take some off and things like that. Um, and be able to see that. Again, it is going to be not in that 3D like terrain view. So this one is going to be more focused, probably they're going to be more attentive to details and descriptions and things like that than they would be distracted with all the pretty pictures and buildings and, ooh, that house has a pool, type stuff for Google Earth. So I really like my maps for that. Okay, and then the last one that we are going to explore is Google Arts and Culture. So there are lots of things involved, like on this website. You can look up here at the navigation menu, home, explore, play, nearby, and favorites. So there are games built into this, which is also, that would be a great early finisher activity that kids could be interested in completing that could really be associated to a skill and they don't know it. I'm going to just click on explore real quick. So we have different categories. Let's just go over to historical events and see what they've got. Different things that you can look at by topic. If you want to be super specific, obviously, the more current the event, probably the more information we're going to have or the more items we're going to have. So I'm going to go to the civil rights movement. It says I have 185 items. A lot of these are probably pictures. You can look at them from time frame, but also there are certain tours and things that you can do. I was wanting to look at, oh, I'm sorry, it's right here. So we have some 360-degree videos. You have some street views of some famous things that you could look at. And again, places that some people may never see before. Taj Mahal. Let's look at that real quick. So, I mean, this is kind of through Google Earth at the same time, but your students may never, I may never travel to the Taj Mahal. So, this kind of gives them a way that they can have those experiences of cultural places without having to go there. So, that kind of wraps up arts and culture and our Google tools for that. That was kind of lengthy. But again, you could use those tools to do a variety of lessons and reuse them over and over again. Okay, the iCivics online program. I do not have this linked on our Padlet. I'm going to just throw that on there while I'm thinking about that really quickly. Civics, and I'm going to put free next to it because it is free. So just looking at this website, I see lots of things that pique my interest. First of all, I like how it has it divided down by your grade levels, and then they also have a place that students can directly go. They also have professional development for teachers, and they have educational resources. So you could actually go to the resources here and look by type versus by grade level, and you could look for entire lesson plans, a good old web quest that we love to throw on there, videos and things like that. So let's just peek at, we'll do high school because we've been focusing on elementary and middle school. So right here, here's a video series about the Constitution explained, a curriculum whole unit about pushing towards civil rights. So there, it looks like within this unit there are lots of different things based on topics that go into civil rights. There are some web quests, videos, lesson plans, and it looks like every bit of this is free. So, I mean, this is an awesome resource for you, especially if you're a newer teacher or if you are just looking for some different things to use in your classroom, some different resources to change it up a little bit. These are some things that you could use and look through here. It looks like it does want you to make an account. I'm sure you can use your Google email address. That will be totally fine. It looks like it does have some standards linked, but you may have to kind of dig to find the Alabama standards. So would highly recommend that website. I mentioned presentation tools earlier about using things like Google Slides and Sites and Docs to be able to enhance presentations. Also, think about things like Canva, making like infographic posters on historical figures. That would be a really good idea. Blogger is something we talked about in Google Bootcamp, but you could do different blogs or on a Google site about different types of historical events or series of events and things like that. Okay, so the power of annotation. So again, I talked about how, social studies is going to be a lot of reading at the same time. So sometimes that just gets just monotonous. And annotating things is something I did a lot of whenever I was doing virtual teaching during that year that we've all blocked permanently from our memory. Especially if you were in the elementary age level and you're using Social Studies Weekly online, a lot of these tools are built into there. But if you're not and you're pulling your own resources, I would highly encourage you to take a look at Cami. So what I have done is I just found a ReadWorks passage. I downloaded it as a PDF and then I have uploaded it into Cami. Cami is something that's up here in your extension toolbar. Every student educator has an account. We pay for that at a district level. So when we are looking in Cami, some things that we can do here is that we can mark up our reading. So we can say, every time we see words that are going to be about this flower or mention the word Alabama, that we want to mark that up. And so that is super simple for students to do, gives them something to look for to keep them engaged while they're reading. If they see something they aren't sure about, they can actually do a comment about it, and there actually can be done in three different ways. You can do a text comment, a voice comment, or a video comment, or even a screen capture now. So that one is new and added. So if they think to themselves, like native peoples like Choctaw were coerced in assigning treaties, if we had a thought about this and I want to do a text comment about that, I can say, I wonder if other tribes had to move. So if you are wanting them to kind of like create some dialogue while they're reading and have some questions and things like that, that can be done through, again, text. I wonder what the word reluctantly means. Voice, and there's even video as well that you can do. So that gives them a differentiation based on ability levels. Also, with this, I have included the little activities that the ReadWorks has at the end because students can do a text box on here and be able to, you know, or be able to like engage on this document that we're working on. And they can also come down here and they could highlight the answers to their questions, or they could even do little circles, to annotate their answers. So there's lots of different ways that they could engage with the document within Kami. This can actually be shared directly out of Google Classroom for you if you want to do that, and it can open in Kami for your students, and then they can bring it, turn it back in. You even in Kami, I have not tried out our read aloud feature a whole lot. Let's just play with that really quickly. So it's actually going to read aloud this too, and they can slow down their reading. It was playing in my headphones. You probably couldn't hear it. You can change your voice that you would like. And so this right here is a huge game changer for students who may not have the same really reading ability as other students. They can actually listen to it being read to them too. So another thing too, like ReadWorks has that feature built in, Newsy LA does as well. But if you find another resource that you really want to use, or an older article or something like that, you can use those assistive options too in Kami without having to pay for an extra product. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our presentation. Thank you for hanging with me. Also, within this presentation, you're going to see a Google form if you are part of Chilton County Schools and you would like to receive PD credit for this. Please make sure you complete that Google form by May 22nd. If you would like to go back and see some of our other presentations that I've done, they are linked in the Padlet. They are also on my instructional technology resources website. We have ELA, math, and science, and I'm going to be uploading social studies right here whenever I get done with this video. I also wanted to remind you that the most important thing, that technology is never going to replace high quality teaching. It's only going to enhance it. So if you as the teacher are the person who makes this come alive, you are the one that the students love and listen to every day, and you are the one that they're going to remember in the years to come. So, all of these things are just made to enhance our learning. They are not going to make a bad teacher better. It is only going to give you a different way to present information. So I wanted to leave you with that little nugget of encouragement. And if you ever need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you for joining us.